Giannis Antetokounmpo continues to get shortchanged in the rankings. Are the Bucks as a team feeling the same? Camille and I dig into it after this on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day each and every day. Today's episode of the show brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is here. And right now, new customers can bet just $5. If your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets. Download the FanDuel app today. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. And Camille, we teased this on yesterday's show. The top 100 list that all of us worked on putting together for the Locked On Network was revealed Monday afternoon. We know Giannis is going to be near the top every single year, so there's no question there. But this year and last year was the one where you started to think, how far are people going to slide him down? And I mean, I think it's a complicated argument for what we have here, but I still, as I said at the top of the show, I think you feel the same way. Feel like we're ignoring a lot of the body of his resume here in this ranking. So let's peel off the Band-Aid here and just take a look at numbers 1 through 10. Giannis Antetokounmpo checking in at number 3 behind Nikola Jokic. I know that is a very spirited debate among Bucks fans, but I don't think it's debatable that Giannis and Nikola Jokic are there towards the top, and that debate is one that should take place. I understand Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been on the ascent. He is the reigning MVP. He was terrific last year. He is a two-way player. I still think it's Giannis and Jokic in whatever order you choose to select them. And then there's a gap between those two and everyone else.
Yeah, I think Giannis is top 3 and he's not 3. To put it plain and simple, Giannis is a top 3 player in the NBA and he's not 3. If you want to argue Nikola Jokic at 1, I'll hear you out on it, because I know the argument for people who do put Giannis over Jokic, which, let me be very clear in saying, I also think that's very valid. Like, if you put either one of them at 1, I can understand. Because with Jokic, like, yes, the defense, there are some questions there, but he is so gifted offensively with what he can do, where it's like,
he's the greatest offensive player in the league right now.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest offensive players we've ever seen.
7-footer at that, like, with not much athleticism. Like, it's crazy watching him play basketball.
He's gotten cut and trimmed now.
Yes, but no one's gonna think, fool or get Nikola Jokic's athleticism confused with the Giannis type there along the way, or even a Wemby. But yeah, SGA, that's the one that's interesting. Like you said, the ascending player. He had a fantastic year last year, and it was built off of what he did in the prior season, 23-24, where you really saw him coming on. But I don't know. I think I would still place him, like you mentioned. I think he's 3rd behind those two. I think the homer in me would put Giannis at 1 because of the two-way potential of Giannis. Like, yes, Jokic is very gifted offensively. Giannis is nothing to sneeze at. And also, by the way, former defensive player of the year, can tilt the floor on that side of the floor as well. So for me, it's Giannis, Nikola Jokic, SGA in that order.
So similar to yesterday's show, probably one you're going to want to view on YouTube. There's going to be a lot of visuals in this one. And for those of you that are in the audio only audience, number 1, Nikola Jokic, number 2, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and number 3 is Giannis. To round out the rest of the top 10, I took some issue with a lot of this list, actually, Camille. So we'll get your thoughts here in a second. But Luka Doncic is number 4. Steph Curry's number 5. Anthony Edwards is number 6. Then you have Wemby at number 7. 8 through 10 is where you started to lose me. Jalen Brunson Donovan Mitchell, and Jason Tatum in that order, 8, 9, and 10. So with that top 10 reveal, I guess we've already shared our thoughts on the Giannis third ranking. I quite frankly don't feel like continuing to have the Giannis versus Jokic debate. We can agree they're the best two players in the league. I don't care how you choose them, whatever. But outside of the top three, what stood out to you the most about this 1 through 10?
One Wemby cracking the top 10. Off top, like the talent is there, but it was kind of like a wow, okay. People already like the collective sees him there already. I also thought that Jason Tatum was a little too low. And
Yeah.
the Bucks fan in me, it pains me to say Jason Tatum is being undervalued here, but I think part of it to let people know how the sausage was made a little bit here. There was a debate here for a second amongst the hosts making these ratings of what do you do with the injured players? Like, what do you do with a Tatum, a Dame, a Tyrese Halliburton? And some people voted as if they were healthy. Some people voted like they're not playing. So I think the range on those players is going to be a little bit wild. Like, I think Tyrese Halliburton, as of what we've seen, is a top 10 player in the NBA at this point. Like, he has shown that to me. I think that Tatum is probably in that 7, 8 range. So like me saying 10 is too low. It's not by much, but just a bit. So yeah, those were the things that stood out to me on the back end of the top 10 of this list here.
Yeah, it was like the Batman, the Dark Knight line, with the you die the hero, you live long enough to be the villain, is how I felt with my agreement with you too on the Jason Tatum thing of like, how did we get here that I'm suddenly caping for Jason Tatum being underrated in this list? But that's one of the bigger takeaways that I had here is I don't think Jason Tatum is a top 5 player, but I think he's just on the outside of that list. I mean, I think he's probably 6 or 7, honestly.
Yeah.
I would take Jason Tatum in front of Jalen Brunson. I would take Jason Tatum in front of Donovan Mitchell. Anthony Edwards is the interesting one. It feels like we always look for the next one to make the jump. And I think the last 2 years we pointed to Luka Doncic that the time is now and the opportunity is here for Luka to be MVP. I think that's this year for Anthony Edwards, that Minnesota's been building something. We talked about it with the Pacers the last couple of years before that Achilles injury kind of usurped all of that. But if the Timberwolves continue to take those steps forward, build on it, they figured out how to play around Rudy Gobert. They found the mix that works, and they were able to keep all their bigs. If Anthony Edwards continues to take a leap here, he, to me, is the logical MVP this season. And I think the difficult conversation is we're banking on Luka to be like back to transcendent Luka. Not that he was ever bad the last couple of years, but I think we assumed the ascent was going to be much higher than it got to, especially after getting his team to the finals. So to me, those are the two most interesting guys this year. Luka and what he does in an awkward situation with the Lakers of like, I don't think you know, LeBron, but this is my team now. And that whole dynamic. And then Anthony Edwards and what's going on there with him and the Timberwolves. That those two guys to me are the most interesting ones that I think make a strong case for, do we push one of those guys in there and kick Steph Curry out of the top 5 now?
See, and that was my next question to you, which maybe we come back in the next segment with, which is, were you surprised that Steph Curry was the only like OG guy in the top 10? 'Cause I wasn't. Like, Steph Curry was top 5 in my list too, which is crazy to think that Steph Curry is still operating at the level that he's able to at 37 right now. Like, we give LeBron all the credit for sure, because his career has spanned, 23 years. Like, LeBron has been hooping since I was a freshman in high school, and I am long past those days at this point. So, like, yes, but I think the longevity for Steph in his game too is a little underappreciated at times with what he's still doing at a very, very high level.
Wait, you were a freshman in high school?
A freshman in high school. 03 class was my freshman year.
I mean, I was in college when LeBron made his debut. It is an interesting discussion on the Steph Curry versus LeBron and what we're seeing there. And then also, how many more Bucks are on this list? How far down do you have to scroll to get there? And I think we briefly touched on this earlier in the offseason, but if we did a redo at the end of the season, how would it look for the Bucks? What other names or name would crack that list? We will entertain those questions and get into those conversations coming up next on Locked On Bucks. NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You'll love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even just jumping into the live action as things unfold. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or you're keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. And it's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Steph Curry, number 5. I wasn't surprised because the Q rating for Steph Curry is higher than any of the other old cagey vets. LeBron is far too polarizing. And Steph, I think it's a couple of things. Number one, he's always had this childlike quality in a good way that draws people in. The dominance that he's had. I mean, you think back to, as you pointed to, still continuing to do this at a high level. Who knows what happens with Team USA last summer if Steph Curry doesn't detonate against France and saving them as one of the masterful moments. But he continues to have moments like that. And I think the other thing that just draws us to Steph Curry is, you can watch LeBron James and Kobe and Giannis, the run and dunk man, and say, well, I'll never know what that's like. But with Steph Curry, to be clear, we'll never know what it's like to be the shooter, the level that Steph Curry is. But it is one of those things you watch and you say, like, I could do that. I could shoot. Like, I can take threes. And you've seen how much Steph Curry has impacted younger generations, too, with the shooting distances and just how much three-pointers, not sets singularly, but he's the biggest name to attach to it and how much he's really impacted the way the game is being played go forward.
Yeah, completely agree with you on that one. And of the OGs, I would think that Steph Curry is that one that should be ranked the highest. LeBron and then KD probably, which outside of our top 10, what is the next tier of players here that we have?
So we're not going to go through all 100, but this was an interesting section too. Kevin Durant checks in at number 11. I guess this one fascinated me. And there was one other section a little further down that you and I were talking about offline a little bit, but you got KD and LeBron James at 11 and 12. I mean, I guess first and foremost, I'll start here. I don't care how old they are. I cannot put Kevin Durant in front of LeBron James on this list in this ranking. I think those two should be flipped.
Yep.
It is the interesting conversation you mentioned before that we all grappled with. You had Tatum in the previous 10-piece set here. Now you got Tyrese Halliburton of like, well, he's not going to play this year. Do we know? And in the case of Tyrese Halliburton and Tatum, both younger guys, there isn't as much of a fear, but how much of a step will they lose, if any, when they return from these injuries? But KD and LeBron James both just on the outside of the top 10, and KD checking in front of LeBron James. Your thoughts with that? Did you have any qualms or issues there?
Yeah, but it's one of those qualms where it's not like egregious to me. Like if you wanted to point to the fact that KD is still a 7-footer, the efficiency levels in which he can score, and I think defense is a little bit better than people tend to give him credit for. And you point to that and like, I'll take that right now over what LeBron James can give you. I could listen to it. I won't agree, but I'll listen to it because for me and LeBron James, like the lows for LeBron were low. When he's not putting in the effort on the court, you can tell. You can see it. He's not as athletic as he once was, but he is still somebody so cerebral where he can affect the game in many ways without just scoring the ball. The playmaking that he has also gives me a little bit of an edge over KD. For him, the defense, like as I mentioned, I do think KD's a bit better defensively than he gets credit for. But LeBron James is LeBron James. And although he's not playing defense, like his peak form, some years ago, when he's dialed in, he can, again, affect the game in many, many ways. So I'd go with LeBron over KD. And then just looking at how the rest of the top 20 rounds out with KD at 11, LeBron at 12, Halliburton at 13, Anthony Davis at 14, Cade Cunningham at 15, Evan Mobley at 16, Kawhi Leonard at 17, Devin Booker at 18, Karl-Anthony Towns at 19, and Jalen Williams at 20. You're getting to that point where the new school guys, they're starting to become the young vets, and they're getting that experience behind them. So they're coming up, and I'll be really curious to see kind of what this list is looking like too, like at the end of the year, like which one of these young guys continues to take that leap, especially with Halliburton out, Tatum out. Like who shines? Who shines?
Who do you think's played more games the last 4 years between LeBron and Kevin Durant?
Last 4?
So the year after the Bucks won the championship.
I would say LeBron.
Yeah. LeBron by about 15 more, I think. But, that's one of the things that I grappled with too, of LeBron's injuries stand out, and KD's do as well. But you think about prolonged absences for LeBron and how much, LeBron's whole approach is maintenance, basically body maintenance throughout the regular season to get yourself ready for the postseason. And for KD, it's kind of, the results are the same, but the way you get there is the opposite, where it has started to be lower body injuries for a 7-footer that's racked up some mileage, where we've gotten to the point that you basically can pencil both of these guys in for 60, 65 games a year.
Trying to hit that
each
season.
season.
For the awards.
I agree with you on Kevin Durant's defense being underrated in his heyday. I don't think it's been the case the last few years. I think he's shifted closer to the LeBron model of like, I'm just going to save it for moments throughout the game. But I mean, the fact that their numbers are so comparable the last, 4 years that we're looking at in games played, and even beyond that throughout their entire career, but especially at these advanced ages, that they're so close, and a lot of them nearly identical. Games played, their efficiency numbers, their scoring production. That's where I have a hard time saying, I'd take Kevin Durant over LeBron James at this stage in their careers, even as a 41-year-old. But I think we agree with overall where they were slotted in there. Anthony Davis at 14 is the first moment on this list where I started to say, hold on here.
You're not a fan of it. And I shouldn't say not a fan of Anthony Davis. You don't think that Anthony Davis is,
I do not think he's one of the 20 best players in the league at this point.
You said not 20?
No.
You don't, even when he's healthy.
Not this. When is that?
Okay, that is fair. So that is fair. The injury docks on him for sure. But when he is healthy, and I know that if is doing a lot of heavy lifting, when and if he is healthy, does the heavy lifting there. He is still dominant on defense. He was the Lakers defense until he was traded. Yes. The only real source of backline defense that they had on that team. And then that forced LeBron into that bigger role a bit once he got traded to the Mavericks. But defensively, he is still there. He's still gifted. The only thing is his body breaks down. He has the interior scoring. He has the shot blocking. He has versatility to move his feet a bit. It's just health.
Here's what I'll say. And you have talked about this before. I don't disagree with any of the points that you made defensively, specifically when Anthony Davis is healthy. Some of the offensive game, sure. He is not a dominant offensive player. And I think the appeal to Anthony Davis as a two-way player has been the stretch ability. And he was a kid in Chicago growing up that was a guard, had a growth spurt, all of that. Mm-hmm. But when you look at his shooting splits and numbers, he is not an effective and efficient outside shooter. It is all around the basket. Mm-hmm. And I just think there's a handful of players at his position that are markedly better inside the three-point arc offensively than he is, that it's almost the inverse of the Giannis discussion of like, or the Giannis versus Jokic one of like, yeah, you got defense. Your offense, it's not, levels of Nikola Jokic's defense, but I think it shades closer to that than it does Giannis as a two-way player.
And I think
If
that's
that
fair.
whole ramble makes sense.
No, that makes sense because I've been saying that the bubble year for Anthony Davis really warped the way that people view his 3-point shooting.
Is there anyone else on that team?
But the point with that is to your point, like the shooting. I was like, there have been years where Giannis shot better from three than Anthony Davis, which no one would ever consider because of what we know about how Giannis shoots the ball and what we saw Anthony Davis
notion over AD too.
Yeah. So like that's one thing I will give with AD. I do think people kind of overvalue what he can do as a stretch big, but I do think that he is gifted around the rim as an inside big.
I said I didn't want to spend too much time on going over all these, but there's a couple other points of contention and interesting debates that I do want to ask you. So one I want to get to with this 11 through 20, and then there's another big one in the middle of this list. And of course, we'll get to the back of the list too, spoiler alert, where we find the only other Milwaukee Buck to check in here. So we'll get to that coming up after this. Okay, the other one I wanted to bring up here, I suppose number one, is it prisoner of the moment, or do you think Jalen Williams needs to be higher than 20?
I think 20 is fine. I think I had him around that on my list personally. He was somewhere in this range for me too. That feels right, but I could see him being someone who continues to rise through this list after this season of play.
I mean, I think, I think there's a very good chance that if we redo this at the end of the season, Jalen Williams is closer to the top 10 and moves, I don't know if I'd say far, but moves past Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
By season's end on this list. And then the other interesting one, I think I know your answer. I think I would agree with your answer, but who would you rather have? Anthony Davis or Karl-Anthony Towns?
You got the defensive concerns there with Karl-Anthony Towns, but you're going to have him on the court a little bit more regularly than you would an Anthony Davis. He can stretch the floor.
He is the second best shooting big of all time. Second, not the first.
Right. And especially when I think of like, if my mind always goes like, how do you pair it next to Giannis? But that's not the question. I think I would go with Karl-Anthony Towns because of the availability factor of it. Assuming you can pair him next to somebody defensively, another big that, can kind of anchor things. But otherwise, like if you don't have that next to him and he is your sole big, you're going to run into some problems, in which case I would want Anthony Davis in that situation, although you probably have him for fewer games, if that makes sense.
Yes. And I mean, they're basically making the same amount of money on an annual basis. So the contract is essentially a wash there. It's third best shooting big of all time too, because Kevin Durant is a big.
That's fair.
But the point just being, I think it's closer than most people would think of, hey, which of these two would you rather have? Because I think knee jerk, everybody would just say, I'd rather have Anthony Davis. And I do think I would still probably take Anthony Davis over him, but it's close. Let's see. Other ones that stood out here, the 21 through 30 list, if you're viewing on YouTube, I didn't really have any takeaways from this grouping. Jaylen Brown at 21. You had players like Chet Holmgren, Ja Morant, Darius Garland. I think you can make a case maybe should be higher on this list.
James Harden over Ja Morant?
Well, I mean, for Ja Morant, it's also like, we got to see it now. Like we got to see a lot of games start to be added up here. And I mean, honestly, all three of those guys, let's lump together. Who would you rather have right now? Darius Garland, Ja Morant, or James Harden?
It's not Darius Garland. No offense to Darius.
Really?
Yes.
I think that's who I would go with.
I think for me, I always have a problem. I mean, Ja Morant's also a small guard.
With no shot.
Unlike Darius Garland. And the defense for both is kind of and then when you add James Harden to that, I think for me, I would probably still go with Harden, this point guard version of Harden right now, even though I know come playoff time, James is going to be Jimmy Harden by that point, and things don't look the same. But his ability to control the game offensively, the playmaking has been really good for Harden as well. I think I would go with him if like a 1-year thing. Not just like a dynasty thing. It's definitely not Harden because he's the old man on this list here. But like for a 1-year go, I would go with Harden.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam, James Harden. We mentioned the other two guards there. Jimmy Butler in here. Chet Holmgren at number 30. There's certainly the upside to be a top 30 is another one. Like I need to see a full year of Chet Holmgren on both ends of the floor being this guy. Because again, no questions defensively and how impactful he's been there. Jaren Jackson in that group as well. But other than that, nothing really stood out about the 21 through 30. 31 through 40, same story. There was no real takeaways that I had. A lot of these players, makes sense. Domas Sabonis and Bam Adebayo, Alperen Şengün. This is like not the elite bigs, but the pretty good bigs tier. Ivica Zubac is in there as well. Kyrie Irving for the injury component. I had no takeaways or no strong objections to any of these in the 31 through 40. What about you?
No, not myself either. Jamal Murray is an interesting guy. I'm always curious like where Jamal Murray ranks in lists like these because we've seen him at his peak and what he can do like the year when the Nuggets won the championship. And I do think he's like a deciding X factor for the Nuggets. But this range felt right to me. And I normally don't feel that way about Jamal Murray. I think normally he's like in the 20s and that always feels a little bit too high.
Maxey versus Fox is an interesting debate for me too, because which version of De'Aaron Fox is going to be the real De'Aaron Fox, I think is the question there. I believe this is, yes. So this is the one where you and I were talking previously and I had some interesting, like, really? Okay. 41 through 50, Scotty Barnes and Jalen Johnson, the first two, Julius Randle at 43, Aaron Gordon, one of the perpetually underrated players in the league at 44. Aaron Gordon versus OG Anunoby. Where would you go there?
I think I would go OG personally.
So would I. There's a lot. It pains me to say against a Wildcat, but there's a lot of similarities. But I think OG can do a little bit more there. The one that stood out to me is Zion Williamson at number 47.
Too high or too low, Justin?
Too high. I just, we've talked about it before, and I think the theme throughout this list for the both of us is availability is the most important ability, and it has not been there for Zion. He has wowed us in brief flashes in his short career so far, but we haven't seen it consistently, and some other questions surrounding him as well that, to me, 47 seemed a bit high for Zion. And I pull up the next category because you got Joel Embiid at number 52. And look, I just made the case of how important availability is. But the big difference to me is I know when Joel Embiid is available and healthy, he is elite. He is one of the greatest offensive players, one of the greatest offensive bigs of all time, and how skilled he is there. If I told you we're not waving a magic wand and saying they're both going to be healthy, it's just roll the dice and take what you get, who would you rather have right now for this season, Joel Embiid or Zion Williamson?
If I was making the dice roll purely on talent, it would be Embiid. The unfortunate part about it is that I have more health questions about Embiid right now than I do Zion. And Zion has a laundry list of injuries. So for me to say I have more injury concern about
and
Embiid,
other things,
you know what I mean? Like it's a lot. Like especially the relationship he's had with the team itself, and how his treatment has been going, and him announcing on the game against the Bucks that he was going to be having surgery in the first place, which was the first time the team found out, and everything with that. And now everything's just really gray around his health, when he'll be expected back. And because of that, I would have to go with Zion. But again, like when Embiid is healthy, the win, a lot of lifting there. He's a special guy, to the point where we're starting to get deeper into these careers where it's like, dang, I'm kind of disappointed we never got the Giannis Embiid playoff series.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with not having to do it. Yeah, we're opposite. To me, it's no questions asked. I would take Joel Embiid, and I get it that I think at this point you basically have to assume it's 45 to 50 games tops that Joel Embiid is going to be playing in a season here, or in this season, unless we find out the procedure and we're going to really work to build in more time off. He's already said no back-to-backs. Like, if that does a lot of the heavy lifting and we see this re-energized Joel Embiid, and all of a sudden the following season he's getting up to the 65 threshold in there, then it makes it interesting. But even, knowing those questions exist, I would still take Joel Embiid, because I know what he's going to give me when he's on the floor and healthy. And Zion has been good when he's been healthy. He has not been Joel Embiid levels of good. And like, look, as much of, and I'm not saying it's good, but as much of a knock as Joel Embiid takes for the time that he has missed, Zion Williamson played 30 games last season. He played 29 games 2 seasons prior to that. The season prior to that, he did not play at all. His rookie season, he played 24 games. So, like, we are beyond Joel Embiid levels with those numbers.
Yeah, we are. And it's just that what we've heard recently about Embiid's knee, as, again, big 7-footer.
And what anyone with eyes has seen the last few years.
Like, it feels like a chronic thing at this point with Embiid. So until I can see him back, especially, it's a tough one. But I agree wholeheartedly on the talent aspect of it. Like, Embiid is, that's an MVP. Like, that's an MVP. Yeah. Zion has never reached those heights.
There may be other chronic issues with Zion as well. 61 through 70, no Bucks in this list. We already shared our thoughts on Denny Avdia on yesterday's show and the recruitment that we hope Giannis is starting to do potentially there. But yeah, the only thing that stood out to me about this portion of the list is, number one, what a heavy lift last season did for Dyson Daniels, that all of a sudden he is not only cracking the top 100, but in the top 2/3 of that at least. And might be a little high for Alex Caruso.
The final run did him some wonders too there.
And Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yeah, I mean, OKC is well represented here on this list. Again, if we're coming off of last season, the champs, they were a collective unit with the depth, and it showed. So, like, I can understand it. But this is, unless the Thunder go back to back and repeat, and these same guys are playing some key roles, this might be the peak for someone like an Alex Caruso, I would say.
I believe this is where we get to the Bucks. So yes, 71 through 80. The only other Milwaukee Buck on this list is Miles Turner at number 72. And for those of you listening, just to give the context, the players around him, his former teammate, Andrew Nembhard, is number 71. Kobe White of the Bulls is number 73. You got Lou Dort at 74. Kristaps Porzingis, 75. So Miles Turner checking in front of him. And also in front of Paul George, Cam Johnson, and our old guy, Drew Holiday.
Yeah, that feels about right for me for Miles Turner. I figured he'd be somewhere,
honestly, a little higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I thought he could be anywhere between like 65 and 80. Like, that was the type of range I was thinking for Miles Turner, and there he is, 72. So we expected, we had this conversation weeks ago when we kind of announced that the network was doing this, that we would assume the only other Buck to make this list outside of Giannis would be Miles Turner. So to see him check in at 72, again, I think that it's a bit higher than some might have assumed, but feels on brand for what Miles Turner can give you as someone who can be defensive, shooting a stretch big there for you.
I would have thought it would have been around like 80, in the low 80s there. So 72, I got no qualms with. What I do have a problem with in this set of 10 players, Camille, is number 80 has never played a game in the NBA. We have Cooper Flagg at number 80 on this list. So already you have Cooper Flagg ahead of Naz Reid, DeAndre Hunter, Bradley Beal, Herb Jones, Brandon Miller, Josh Giddey, Aaron Nesmith, everybody's favorite Josh Hart, Emmanuel Quickley, Asar Thompson. And I mean, I don't care so much about the 91 through 100 players, but still, guys like RJ Barrett, Tumani Kamara, Anthony Simons, Nikhil Alexander Walker. We've got Cooper Flagg, who may well at the end of the season be one of the 80 best players in the league, but we have not seen it at the NBA level, and Summer League does not count. So you cannot put rookies in a top 100 list.
I agree. And even if Summer League did count, what I would need to see would have been far more than what we actually did see from Cooper Flagg at Summer League. Not to say he had a bad one, but for a rookie to be a top 100
Absolutely
player,
dominant.
you know what I mean? Like he would have to have had like 50 balls and just like some crazy games where you're like, oh my God, he's next up. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think at this point you can put a rookie on the list when you haven't seen the body of work in the league. I can get projecting about where you think he'll be, but like it's just hard to rank him at this point with no body of work.
The last thing I'll touch on here is we flashed it up there briefly, so we'll put up the 91 through 100 again. For those of you listening, Christian Braun at number 91, Jalen Green at 92, Jakob Poeltl at 93, Nikola Vucevic 94, RJ Barrett, Peyton Pritchard, Nikhil Alexander Walker, CJ McCollum, Anthony Simons, and Tumani Kamara rounding out the list. So Tumani Kamara, Mr. Irrelevant on this 1 through 100 ranking. These guys in 91 through 100. Is there anyone on the Bucks outside of Giannis and Miles Turner that you feel you can make a very strong case they should have been ahead of one of these guys into the top 100?
No, not off of what we've seen from them the past year, but I do think the Bucks have some guys that could possibly crack this list next year.
It's tricky. I think it's really close. I think the big thing for the Bucks is going to be, number one, what do we see from the guy that we've arguably talked about the most this offseason in Kevin Porter Jr.? What do we continue to see from Gary Trent Jr.? And are those guys that all of a sudden enter the, like, they're, I think at this point they are, but the name value of CJ McCollum, they're better than that. They're better than Anthony Simons. I would rather have them than RJ Barrett, like that type of Peyton Pritchard too. Mm-hmm. How much of an impact Peyton Pritchard makes now that the Celtics aren't the same old Celtics. Like end of season, those players are going to be interesting comps. The bigs is where I really had to think long and hard. And I honestly think I would have included Bobby Portis in the top 100 over Jakob Poeltl and or Nikola Vucevic. I get what Jakob Poeltl does as a rim defender. He's a one-way player, and even that rim defense has taken a step backward the past couple of seasons. So I think those are close in toss-ups of, if I'm gonna make a case for someone to crack the top 100, I think I would put up Bobby Portis against those two guys.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And he was the guy I was thinking of too, of like, I think that we're in for a big Bobby Portis year. Just given, I think, one, what he's going to be called on to do for this team, a role that he's been in, but he's now one of the vets on this team. Like he has a different standing in Milwaukee now. One of the longest tenured players on the team now, next to Giannis too. So the respect is there, but also what can he build off of last year and what we were seeing from him on the court with Giannis? How can he continue to grow that? And I think Bobby's going to come into this season a little bit hungrier than usual because he didn't get to play his full slate of games last year. I'm sure he has a bad taste in his mouth from the playoff exit, as does, or I guess, the rest of the guys on the team. But for Bobby to miss those games because of the PED and to not get to play down the stretch there, like Bobby's coming into the season, I think, with a lot to prove. And of all the Bucks players of like who could join that top 100, I do think Kevin Porter Jr. has that big boom bust potential to do so. But I think Bobby Portis is your safest bet of like, this is the guy I would pick to make this list at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're already up against time here, but I think it's an interesting discussion to explore uh, shortly here and later in the offseason is one of the big differences with Bobby this year too is what's not that it wasn't before, but what's going to be expected of him as a leader on this group
Yeah.
now too. That Chris would always joke that like Chris Middleton was Bobby's vet, and he was the one that kind of kept him
Mhm.
in line and would kind of rein in the emotions. But when Bobby Portis joined the team, you had Chris Middleton and Giannis as the clear-cut leaders of this team. You had Drew Holiday that eventually
Mhm.
became that as he got more and more comfortable with this team. Brooke Lopez
Yep.
and a vet and what he brought to the team that just one by one, you added guys like PJ Tucker
Mhm.
that wasn't Bobby's role. And now you look around and Bobby and Giannis are looking around like, we
It's
are
true.
the oldest of the regular and guys that we know are going to get heavy minutes
Yep.
playing. We're the old guys now. So we're going to be expected, and Miles Turner too, to be the veteran leaders on this team.
Yeah, they really are, and that role is going to be different. And like you said, we're up for time, but we've talked about like the growth in Giannis's leadership style over the like last season in particular, and the idea of what's going to be required from him this upcoming season, along with a Bobby Portis, is kind of interesting to think about, especially with the difference I would say in the leadership style between the two.
Explored a lot of interesting debates here on this one. So leave your thoughts on all of it. Where you would rank Giannis. Bobby Portis, is he the next on the list for the Bucks, or who you would remove and insert on the Milwaukee Bucks in this top 100 list? And who would be the guy at the end of the season most likely to make that jump? Maybe it's not Bobby, maybe it's one of the younger guys. So leave your thoughts in the comments, and we'll dig through those for some Q&As on some upcoming shows here. We mentioned tomorrow's show is going to be a bit of a crossover and taking a look at the Toronto Raptors, a team that some have pegged to finish around the Bucks. Some of us think not so much. So we'll dig into those comparisons on tomorrow's show. The Bucks, I did it again, Camille. Greece is playing today. So we'll see if we have a semifinals game to preview for you on either Thursday or Friday show. And we'll let you know too when the episode airs, but we are going to be recording with Marcus and Chris on their show, The Here District, and I believe that'll come out sometime this week. So we'll let you know on that one as well. That'll do it for today's show. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.